Good morning, everybody. I hope you're ready for a big day. We got lots to do today. It's Monday. Well into June, so there are no excuses anymore. Also, no surprises because we know what to expect of June. June is like a wicked old witch who gives you nothing that you want and everything that you don't. That's just how she is. She's got a bad attitude, cackles. She's mean-spirited. She forces you to wear lots and lots of clothes just so that you can get on with doing ordinary, basic stuff. I will never in my life understand why there are people who enjoy dressing up for winter. I don't get it at all. All right, well, what a weekend. I mean, we could start off with two quite impressive things. We could start off with something a little bit sad. I mean, you can decide. You let me know. You know, give me drop me a hint in the comments, and I'll follow your instructions. That's kind of how we run the show. And then we've got Leigh-Ann joining us in just a moment or two. Got lots of other really cool things to talk about today too, and Collectomania, Dr. Hanan. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's going to be a busy start to your day. Where shall we begin? The weekend was just full of stuff. If you watched TV and you stayed inside, and that was probably the most sensible thing you could do, you would have seen the tennis, which was amazing. I'm not much of a tennis fan, but I do like watching the best of the best competing against each other. And you got to say about that Rafael Nadal, right? Even if you don't like him, you got to say this guy, he's like a Rottweiler. He is just not him. Federer, Djokovic, those three between them must hold all the records to the exclusion of pretty much everyone else. And to be alive at the time where those guys are alive is amazing. It's really phenomenal. So that was the one thing. Hello, Leigh-Ann Mole.
Oh.
Oh.
Hello.
All right. There she is. How was your weekend?
Oh, all good. I went to a big shopping mall.
Oh.
And they're still empty, hey?
Yeah. Which one did you go to?
Well, Sandton City.
Sandton? Oh.
And I just wonder how these enormous shops with maybe they'll sell one handbag a day or a diamond ring.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a tennis bracelet for 500,000 Rand. Who's buying those things right now? And also, are people just buying stuff online? What's happening? The shops are empty.
What, you mean you didn't buy the tennis bracelet?
No, of course I did, Gareth.
Expect nothing less.
But there was no one there to see me buy it.
Oh, right. Okay, so you're looking for attention for the fact that you were well done on your purchase of that tennis bracelet. Yeah, I spent a lot of time watching TV this weekend, but I did have a really nice dinner party on Saturday.
Ooh.
I didn't cook.
Were women invited?
Yes. Lots of women. In fact, it was basically, there were 8 of us all together, and one of the couples they did all the cooking. The rest of us had to bring various things, like someone brought the pudding and someone brought the bread and that kind of shit. But really, this one couple did everything, and they did an unbelievable job, like just beautiful, beautiful food. And it ended up being very, very smart. I was quite impressed because these are the same people I often get hugely drunk with. And, we're used to all kind of knocking back shots and things. And here we were sitting in a well-appointed table, eating beautifully from, the proper vessels that you should be eating from, drinking red wine, really very adult, which is, it's about time, some people would say. But it was really quite cool because it felt, we had fires going. It was so civilized. It was like, wow, this is, I feel as old as my parents when I do this kind of thing.
Well, I mean, considering that we're at the age when people used to die at our age in the Middle Ages, it's about time that our friends became more sophisticated, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, it's the same friends, which is even more impressive. I mean, these people are very versatile. They can be drunken idiots, and they can also be like really, really sophisticated and smart and presentable. Anyway, that was fun, but I did get the bad news about John Burks dying over the
Oh
weekend.
man. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry for you and Rena, because I know you really admired him and were close to him.
The horrible news always kind of hits you right in the throat, but this guy, I got to tell you, in South African radio, there is just no one who even comes close.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know who John Burks was, and many of the people who listen to us might not know, and it wouldn't be your fault. John Burks was the first real celebrity in South Africa. He was also the first personality on radio. And he had a voice, and he had a sense of humor, and he had a feel for broadcasting that I don't even think when I'm at my best I can be as good as him in that respect. He was just absolutely unparalleled.
Mm.
I remember the first time I ever met Burks was at 702. I had been fired from campus radio, and I decided, fuck this. I'm going to go and see the best guy in radio, and I'm going to get a job from him. And it was his last show, so my timing was awful. I walked in, I hadn't made an appointment, and I said to his producer, a wonderful woman called Eleanor Moore, I said to her, please, Eleanor, I don't know anybody else here. I don't know you. I want to just meet Burks because I know it's his last show today. And she said, all right, well, just hang around. He finishes his show at 9, and I'll see if I can get you to meet him. And I just waited in the lobby. There were all these famous people walking past me. Remember in those days, radio was a big deal because we didn't have TV celebrities. We didn't have movies being made in this country. There were no famous people except the people on radio. And they were the people that you'd listen to, as I had with Burks, every day on your way into school with your mother. And he finished his show, and he came out, and everyone was saying goodbye to him and bringing him presents. And I thought, oh, he's never going to have time for me. Anyway, he said, come in. So I went and sat in his office. He had an office, and to be the talent and actually have an office, you were a big, big deal. And it was decorated with people had drawn cartoons of him. There were paintings. There were little statues of him, that people had given him over the years that he was busy putting into boxes and things. And I sat down with him for a few minutes. He said, "Oh, so why don't you tell me about what you do in radio?" And I said to him, "Well, I've just been fired." So he said, "Oh my God." He started laughing. What did you do? So I started telling him, and he wanted to hear all the stories suddenly. And he said, "Look, I'm leaving here, but I want to introduce you to someone called Rena Bromberg. And she's not in radio either at the moment, but let's see what she can do." Anyway, so he passed on her number. I, of course, immediately called her as soon as I got home. We didn't have cell phones, or if we did, they were crap. And I had a landline number for her. And I remember calling her, and there was this voice on the other end of the phone. "Hi, this is Rena." I went, "Hi, I got your number from John Burks today, and he said I must come and see you." She said, "I'm not really in radio, but let me see what I can do." And I went and saw her, I think, 2 days later. And that was where my commercial radio career started, because she arranged, along with Eleanor Moore and some other people, for me to do, like, I don't know, some late night, terrible, terrible producing job. I was awful as a producer. I hated it. I was this close to giving up on radio, but I'll never forget that John Burks gave me that break. He introduced me to my business partner, someone who, we've all become friends. I became friends with John. I became friends with Rena, people who were luminaries in my industry. And this man was a giant, because before any of that, before it involved me, he had already been the only guy who'd ever been on a billboard, for example, on the highway. He was larger than life. He had this extraordinary voice. He had characters. I mean, the voices and the accents and the characters and things that he could do. I remember he fooled people like Sol Kersner into thinking he was Ronald Reagan. He could do just about any voice that you could imagine. He did these. He was the beginning of those prank calls, those fun calls, which others have tried and have never got to his level. He was just the best. And radio has lost someone extraordinary, and heaven has gained someone to broadcast to everyone else. So his new show is much, much bigger than any show he'd ever have here. I'm just,
Yeah.
I get a little bit sentimental about these things, but then I have to pull myself back. He's got two wonderful children, Lance and Charisse, who are obviously in the country. Lance just flew in for the funeral, and and grandchildren whom he loved to pieces. And I asked him because I had this amazing coincidental occurrence about 2.5, maybe 3 months ago. I went with Rena to visit him at his house. And he wasn't
wow.
sick or anything. Yeah, he was absolutely fine. And we walked in and he made us tea. And, he was he was funny. He was so funny. He was almost like a little bit kind of Larry David-ish because,
Yeah.
I think Munda's made us. He had a wonderful partner for most of the time I ever knew him. She was with him throughout, Munda, and he and she lived together, and they were very happy, and she was devoted to him and he was devoted to her. And she had made a whole bunch of stuff knowing that we were coming.
Mm.
And he said, "Oh, do you want some scones or some muffins or some cupcakes?" And he was kind of walking around trying to find us this stuff. And I sat down with him, and it was Rena's idea that we recorded the conversation, which I've got. So he said
Oh, wow.
he said some amazing things. I think there are people who say the soul knows because he spoke a little bit about what he thinks is going to happen after death, what he feels life after death might be like, which, if I think about it now, gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
And he talked about his kids and his grandkids, and he talked about his radio career. He talked about all the people he'd met and the places he'd been, and the shows that he just loved doing. And he got into people's hearts and souls. So I'm very sad that he's gone, but at the same time, I'm grateful that I could have shared a small part of his life with him, that all of us got to share a small part of our lives with him because of his show.
Yeah.
And for the godfather of radio has departed. So now we have to, we have to look back.
He's somebody who changed the entire course of your life, Gareth, and introduced you to someone who is still so close to you.
Yeah.
How many people can we say have changed the course of our lives? Not that they were just maybe people who were nice to have around, or people who might have given you some good advice, or who were fun, or people who actually changed your life. Oh.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I was as close as the people who were really close to him who lost him, and I didn't know him for nearly as long as so many of them did. But this guy, we're poorer without him, is the point. And that voice will live forever. So actually, he's the voice of our original, kind of Cliff Central sound. That Cliff Central here. No more bullshit. We don't use that kind of jingle anymore. But no more bullshit. CliffCentral.com. He did all of that stuff for us as a kind of favor. The greatest voice in radio just said to us, "Yeah, well, sure, I'll do it for you for nothing. Don't even bother. There's no problem." Anyway, I just think it's great. So there he is. He's gone. Then the other thing that was quite moving over the weekend, and I don't think I can really say I'm a through and through royalist. I think that there's a lot about the royal family that's silly. The fact that there are these people who are called Your Royal Highness or whatever. But it is part of, I suppose, my cultural tradition. It's like if you're Zulu, you kind of respect that stuff, even if you don't really believe it's important.
Yeah.
I come from a family that's always been, well, I mean, at least 3/4 of the family are about as English as they get. And the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, which I saw in bits and pieces. I didn't sit there the whole weekend watching it. It would have been much too boring. But I saw highlights on social media, and I caught a little bit of it live. And it was just a beautiful celebration, not just of one woman, but of a culture which is still one of the best in the world, one of the most exciting to be a part of, one of the most interesting to watch, and something I think people all over the world kind of, they just nod a little nod of respect to the British for having done what they've done over thousands of years, having added to the tapestry of humanity the way that they have. I don't really care about the political implications of the monarchy, or whether or not people really like Charles and Camilla or any of that shit. I just think here's an old woman who has put her heart and soul into doing the best job she could, and she got the job by inheritance, and she's done an excellent job of it. As a history student, I've studied the course of nations under certain monarchs, and some of them add value and some of them just destroy the place. And she has made an enormous impact on the lives of everyone who's alive on Earth today. I don't think there's a more important person, and by important I mean someone who everyone in the world knows, who everyone in the world has respect for, who everyone in the world would recognize, than that Queen of England.
Yeah, and it's come at a time, I think. I mean, it's been 4 days of celebration at least for everyone in the UK.
The English, they're so over the top, right? I mean, you see these people having, we've got the longest table in the world. We've set up about 2.5 miles of tables where we're going to eat sausages and pies and Scotch eggs. I'm going to celebrate the Queen with a couple of beers. And they take it super seriously.
Yeah, like 4 days of celebration and sunshine and happiness and, putting aside all those things about whether or not a royal family is necessary, and, the address that Charles made a few days ago, or weeks ago, sitting in a golden chair and talking about poverty across the country.
Yeah.
All of that aside, people have just been joyous and getting out into the garden and, making neighborhood friends and having good celebrations after all the horribleness of COVID and things that we've gone through.
Yeah, this is the nation that we're all locked in their houses and terrified of each other and like reporting their neighbors just a short while ago. So it's nice to see the English spirit coming back, the British spirit coming back, because it's also the Scots and the Irish and the Welsh, even though I don't think they're really people at all. It's nice to see that they were allowed to join in too. Weren't on chains, because really the Welsh ought to be in captivity pretty much all the time.
Oh my God, Gareth, no.
But anyway, I mean, look, it's nice that the Queen allowed them to come. So it was all very cool. I think it's lovely that we live in a world where there's some people who just make it a bit more beautiful. If nothing else, if the monarchy is purely decorative, then let it be that, because
So
it is
what?
beautifully decorative. Yeah, I mean, I've got to say again, that Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge, who William married a while ago, and who I think everybody thought was very, very boring and quite middle class. I must tell you, that woman is exceptional, and she is setting the standard for where monarchy is going to go. She just looks and she does everything perfectly. I thought she was the actress and not Meghan, because Meghan fucked it up royally, if you'll pardon the pun. But this Catherine Middleton, I don't know that I've ever been as impressed with someone I've never met. And I include like the people I have met, frankly. She's a very impressive person. She seems like a terrific mother. Those kids of hers are so well behaved. Even the littlest one, who, I mean, to get a kid to concentrate for as long as this. She's a good wife. She seems to be immaculate at every possible occasion. She looks fantastic. She sounds just perfect. She's just wonderful. She's wonderful. I can't imagine anyone better for that job. So that was probably my other highlight, was seeing her doing her thing. But anyway, I think it's all part of the icing on the cake that makes the world a little bit more interesting. If it was all just, systems and governments and there was no decoration on top of it, it would be very boring. Because who cares who the Prime Minister of Scotland is? It's not really that interesting. Boris got booed, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Boris and Meghan and Harry were there. I think no one cares, but they got booed as well.
Yeah, look, there are very few real life kings and queens and princes and princesses around the world.
Yeah.
Besides in Disneyland. So yeah, it's good to have them around and to see what they're doing and imagine them living in their castles and letting them be. But they do have important roles to play as well,
I think
and
they
just
do.
a huge amount of tradition to carry through.
That's you hit the nail on the head, like tradition, because they're a link to the past in a way that very few modern things can actually link you to the past. And so many people don't care about history. So this is where I get on my soapbox and start about history, but I'm not going to. It's just nice to see that certain things have survived the test of time. And usually it's because they're quite good. Usually it's because they're quite valuable. We wouldn't keep it around if it was just, oh, well, that's nice. There's got to be a reason that it's there. And I think there is. And, Britain has been, for at least all of my life, but certainly before that, for maybe 100 years before I'd come onto the scene as a living creature, had been the most powerful influence in the world.
Before you
And
rocked up.
yeah, and well, I didn't fuck it up. I had nothing to do with it. But
No, I said
it,
before you rocked up.
yeah, no, I know. It's just it's a cool thing to see. So lots of stuff happening this weekend. It was good and healthy and salubrious. I managed to get to gym, feeling good about myself. I've shaken off, thank God, touch wood, and I hope no more of it comes. All those sniffles and colds that I've had before, and I'm ready for this winter. I'm gonna keep warm, keep fit, and keep on working. That's the plan.
Good thing. It's actually my birthday week.
Yes,
Today, the
your
6th, my birthday.
jubilee.
It's my jubilee on Wednesday.
Yes,
And
what are you going
it's
to do for it?
well, it's always my mom and I, as you know, share a birthday, and it's her 70th,
Oh, big
which is
deal.
pretty amazing. Hmm?
Mm. It's
So
actually
yeah.
it's my mom's 70 this year as well. See how
Oh
old our
wow.
parents are. Mm.
So that means that both your and my mums were 25 when they had us.
Which is apparently like that was that was
It
considered
was
an appropriate age when they
that
had
was
us.
quite late.
Was it?
Yes, for a firstborn,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay. All right.
But yes, so it's her 70th. And so we'll be going out to a fancy restaurant for a spot of
Nice.
dinner.
How
Um,
lovely.
yes, and that's why I was in Sandton yesterday, because I was shopping for her gifts, bought her some jewelry and a handbag.
Oh, so you did buy the
Uh,
tennis bracelet. Okay.
exactly, I wasn't lying.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Nice stuff,
It
ass.
is, but it's certainly at a time when you've heard it all your life. You've heard adults all your life going, "Oh God, I'm getting a year older,
Mm,
and I wish it didn't come." And
mm.
we're definitely at the age now when we're saying the same thing.
No, well, I was like that at 28. You know that. I stopped. I pretty much stopped celebrating birthdays at 28. But I'm not going to be grouchy and grumpy. In fact, I am looking forward to another very busy week this week. I've got some new things that I'm going to be busy with, and that's inspired me too. I felt like after COVID, everything had just kind of gone, and I'm filling
Mm.
my plate up with all kinds of good shit again, like making sure that I've got loads of things to keep me entertained and amused, and obviously busy as well, and in a productive way. I don't want to just have fun, even though that sounds like a really ideal way to live from here on in. But I'm building some things, so just
That's
just
good.
hold back. I'll let you know as soon as we're ready to go on any of these things. But it's going to be exciting.
More distractions to keep us busy until we die.
That's a very depressing way to think about it, but I don't think of
It's
them as
what we do.
distractions. No, I think of it as stuff that you can build and make, and that can create interest and value for other people. I love the idea that you can make things, and when you are no longer here, those things can carry on. So that's what I'm looking at. And so far, all
Legacy.
of my life has been about me being the product, which I'm just not interested anymore. So the things I'm working on are not going to involve me as the product. I will just be in the
Hmm.
background. Very cool. All right. A couple of comments. Comment section is full of absolute nonsense this morning. But anyway, lots of people talking about uh, all sorts of shit. EP47 says, how's it, Gary? I found your place in Benoni that allows you to braai your own meat for free. They also give you a complimentary salad. I was so impressed. Benoni, that's quite clever.
That
That's
sounds
quite a
like a
lot
lot
for
of fun.
Benoni. That sounds very classy for Benoni. Rebellious Ruth says, I looked up all the different uniforms and wanted to know how and what they all mean. Found a bit, Gareth, do you know and understand all the ranks? Okay, yeah. So I'm not the guy. My dad is obsessed. I think he only had tin soldiers when he was a kid. He's obsessed with armies and marching and formations and rank and
Mm,
insignia. And his favorite thing, I happened to coincidentally be in London with my mum and my dad when they went to watch Wimbledon in 2019,
mm,
and they stayed at a very lovely hotel in London. And my dad forced my poor mother around horse guards where they do the parades. About
mhm.
he must have walked through there, she says, 50 times, that he was so obsessed with horse guards. So that's his favorite thing. If you really want an expert in all that stuff, my dad could talk for hours about the difference between the buttons on the Grenadier and the Coldstream and the Scots and the Irish Guards, and whether it's 333, 222, 11111. He knows all that shit. And he told me, but forgive me if I don't remember all that kind of. It's not priority number one to me. But yeah, Ruth, it's interesting to know all of this shit, and all of it has some foundation in history. You know, some of it comes from uh, fighting in the Crimean War or fighting against Napoleon, or even earlier than that in some cases. I mean, they brought that old gold state coach down the mall, which is amazing. It was built for King George III. So that's so old.
Mm.
I mean, he was Mad King George.
Yeah.
So it was built for his coronation. That's the 1700s, the mid 1700s. That's an awfully long time ago. And you think that thing still drives. You'd kind of expect it to be
Imagine
falling apart.
polishing that thing up.
Oh my God. And then they actually gild it, which means that they take gold leaf and they re-gild it every couple of years. So it's probably got a layer of gold about half an inch thick on it now. Who knows? So this is very cool. And I love this. And I want us to do this all over and with all the things. So Ryanair is making South African passengers take a general knowledge quiz on their country before letting them board. I love this. I think people should be forced to take general knowledge quizzes to get into restaurants, to go to shopping malls, to be able to buy groceries, to be able to get into public transport. You should have to prove that you've actually read a book or two. Otherwise, they shouldn't let you buy anything or do anything.
So here's the thing, is that they're actually making South Africans take a quiz on South Africa before
Good.
letting them on board, right?
Right. They should.
And that's in order to prove that they are, in fact, South African.
Right.
And the reason being is that they're trying to prove that people from South Africa or not South Africa are using fraudulent passports, South African passports, in
Good.
order to get onto flights to and from the UK. So, but here's the thing that's absolutely hilarious for me, is that this questionnaire that people have to fill in is only available in Afrikaans.
Okay, no, that's no good.
Okay.
No.
Of course, it's one of our 11, actually 12 now official languages spoken in South Africa, but it is less than 14% of our population which actually speaks Afrikaans, right? So the funny thing for me is that they're trying to prove that we're South African, thinking that we all speak Afrikaans. They even say it's one of the most
big error.
Huge. They even say, well, it's one of the biggest languages spoken in South Africa. They call it one of South Africa's most prevalent official languages.
Okay, well,
so
that's it is, but it's not. I mean, Zulu's by far the biggest, right? English and Zulu are way bigger than Afrikaans by a long way. But what are the questions? Because I want to try some of these.
Okay, so
See, because I am busy saying, yo, you must take a test, and then I fail it. Embarrassing.
apparently some of the questions include what is the country's national flower?
Protea.
Yeah, the protea. Um,
Protea. No,
what
the
are
protea.
3 official languages that are spoken in South Africa?
Isxhosa, Sepedi, Afrikaans.
Zulu.
Whatever,
Yeah.
yeah.
So apparently some passengers have actually requested the form in English, but they've been completely rebuffed because they're supposed to
Wow.
speak Afrikaans. And if they are unable to answer the questions due to language difficulties, it's considered proof that their passport is fraudulent.
Now you suddenly wish you'd done Afrikaans at high school so you can hop on a Ryanair flight. By the way, Congo Chris very cleverly says it's not Ryanair, it's Ryanair. All right, what other questions have we got?
Those are the only 2 that I can pick out of this article. It doesn't go further, but I'm sure that we could find somebody, if someone's listening, who's actually done one of these tests. There was a woman who was denied her flight from London Stansted to Dublin because she failed a test.
But she's going to Dublin. How can they give her a South African test on Dublin? I mean, if you're going to Dublin, what the hell's that all about?
Maybe it was a connecting flight, perhaps. But she had to actually raise the whole issue with the supervisor. She had to show other forms of ID, and then only then was she eventually allowed on board the flight.
All right, but the point is, this is a good thing, and people should be forced to do a little bit of general knowledge. I think it should actually be a subject at school. You know how many people I meet who are boring? They're just boring because they've never bothered to learn anything interesting. You can sit with them at a dinner party, like I was talking about on Saturday, and if you end up next to this boring person, you're going to have an awful night. It doesn't take much. Read a book, you know. All right, so we got some headlines. For this morning, let's take a look at what's actually going on in the news, because this is important for us to be able to figure out our way through the day today. And there's plenty of news after the weekend. So where shall we begin? Let's start off with John Burks, who I spoke about earlier. John Burks, of course, South African radio veteran and legend. People use that word far too often, but really an extraordinary man. And I see that even Eyewitness News, which is a part of 702, which Burks helped launch. There was no 702 really before John Burks came along, and he was the talent that made it fly. Legendary 702 broadcaster John Burks passed away at the age of 80 after a long illness. Former colleagues and listeners have paid homage to Burks. He revolutionized morning radio in South Africa and was known for his prank calls and his quick wit. He's also being remembered as one of the most listened to broadcasters in the country's history. All of that absolutely spot on. So go well, Burksy. And we've talked about that already this morning. If you want to hear more about what we have to say about it, you can listen to the first part of the show this morning. Lots of people talking about the Jubilee concert, which we've also addressed. There were some really good performances there. I saw that Alicia Keys pitched up. I saw Ed Sheeran was there, but I didn't watch the whole concert. So I'm not the guy to tell you whether or not it was amazing.
Didn't we call her Alicia Mkhize for a while?
Alicia Mkhize, correct.
Oh, yes. We South Africanized her.
Correct. The first forensic expert to arrive on the crime scene where Senzo Mio was murdered did not perform gunshot residue tests on people who were present when he was shot. I mean, do you remember, Leigh-Ann, we went on a tour of the forensics and ballistics department at Pretoria, the police, and we were so impressed. They have DNA labs, they have forensic specialists, people who look for drugs, people who can tell you which gun a bullet came out of. And clearly, when these Keystone cops arrived at the Senzo Myiwa murder site, they didn't do any of this stuff. It just, again, makes me think this is one of the countries in the world where the chances of you actually being arrested for something terrible are minimal.
Mm.
So it was revealed in the North Gauteng High Court on Friday, 5 men are on trial, that he was shot at his girlfriend's house in Vosloorus. We know that. And these guys who were all there and arrested and charged with the murder 6 years later, none of them were tested for gunpowder residue. So Come on, guys.
What a
Basics.
joke.
Let's get the basics right, you know? This is not rocket science. Ramaphosa's stolen millions continues to be a story. This was revealed last week. Actually, we had a discussion with Pumi on the Burning Platform about this, that Cyril had all this money in cash that he had on his farm in Limpopo. Information obtained from Amabungani points to a major cover-up in the theft of some $4 million US dollars in cash. Now, let me just remind you that if you as an ordinary citizen have more than a certain amount of foreign currency in your possession, you are technically in contravention of the law and can be arrested. You know that, right?
I know, because I have a lot of that sort of money lying around, of course.
Yeah, Leigh-Ann has a safe full of, we shouldn't tell people that. Oh,
Zimbabwean dollars.
yeah, Zimbabwean dollars. Now the criminal complaint against Ramaphosa the criminal complaint laid against him by former spy boss Arthur Fraser on Wednesday has massively raised the stakes over what exactly happened. The key questions are, what did Ramaphosa do? What did he know? And why was it hushed up? Late on Saturday, the presidential spokesperson sent a message in response to detailed questions stating, "My apologies because of the volume of detailed questions we've received, most of which we cannot answer due to pending investigation. We're going to release a statement later to address the issue." What we do know is authorities in Namibian law enforcement agencies were alerted to about 6 million Namibian dollars, which is about 6 million rand, transferred by the suspects into Namibian accounts between February and May of 2020. One of the suspects is someone called Emanuela David, a Namibian-born individual who also carries a South African passport, who was allegedly illegally crossing into Namibia around the 12th of June of that year. Amabungani reached David via WhatsApp, but he claimed we had the wrong number and didn't know what we were talking about, despite the number being confirmed by one of his friends. He then blocked us. This is interesting. It's getting really kind of saucy. By the 16th of June, Namibian journalists were already aware that he was allegedly linked to the theft of around 50 million rand from the farm belonging to Cyril Ramaphosa. You've got to ask yourself, you know, these rich people, and I include our president because he was a rich man before he was president.
Yeah.
And he only became a rich man because he was politically connected. To have $4 million lying around, you know, really. Apparently also, this guy was found in possession of a Tag Heuer watch, which was worth $28,000, a Rolex watch worth $280,000, and a gold chain worth $163,000, plus 11 $100 US notes. So only 11 notes. What, did he change the rest into gold? Government sources told Namibian journalist Tileni Mongudi at the time South African authorities appeared reluctant to assist or provide information. So what's really going on here, Cyril? Account for yourself. Because, again, it's going to be a situation where people go, oh, different rules for the president and for the rest of us. Anyway, it all sounds very good.
And it's to me, in my mind, I kind of imagine him addressing it in like one sentence during some other meeting and laughing it off.
In the last bit of news, and this is important, I think, I just love this. Elon Musk demanding that Tesla office workers return to in-person work or resign. The policy, which has been disclosed in leaked emails, was first reported by electric vehicle news site Electrek. Anyone who wishes to do remote work must be in the office for a minimum, and I mean minimum, of 40 hours a week or leave Tesla. This is less than we ask of factory workers. Musk wrote, according to this leaked memo, that the office must be the employee's primary workplace where the other workers that they regularly interact with are based, not a remote branch office unrelated to the job duties. He said he would personally review any request for exemption from the policy, but that for the most part, if you don't show up, we will assume you have resigned. Good. Time for us to get back.
It's a complete 180, isn't it?
Get back. There are so many people. It's so funny. I was listening to Bill Maher over the weekend, who I love his podcasts. There's lots that I don't agree with Bill Maher about, but I think he's just getting better and better. And he must be, in his 60s now, and he's on fire. That guy, smarter than ever, doesn't care what the audience think. He is on a mission. He said he loves this. And he said he can't help noticing that the people who love working from home are people who actually have space, nice homes, gardens, someone to clean up after them. And the people who can't wait to get back to the office are people who live in fairly squalid conditions. And he said, it's funny that we keep allowing the rich and the comfortable and the privileged people to work from home when the rest have to get work in the office. So I think
It's
that's
so true. There's so many people who don't want to be at home, who enjoy being away and spending their time away from home.
Because they've got kids and other people, and it's impossible to work in that environment. I mean, so many people, in South Africa in particular, we have people who live in fairly small, humble houses and neighborhoods where you don't have a lot of private space. Not a lot of people have a study at home. It's very difficult for those people to suddenly be expected to make themselves available for 8 hours of meetings a day. And frankly, for many, the office is a place where they can focus, where they can get out of the house, where they can actually concentrate and pay attention to their work. I think that's very sensible. If you are able to work from home, good for you. And again, how many people are actually motivated enough to work from home and do it properly? Because that's the real tough question. You can say you are, but how many people really are motivated enough to do the work?
And I think it's been tough as well for some people to say no to certain things, like family members saying, can you not just take Gran to her dentist appointment? Or, we had an excuse when we were in the office to say, I'm just not available, full stop.
Correct. And remember, people are under huge pressure from their families too. Sometimes the family is like piling on the pressure that you've got to do this, you've got to be there for that, you've got to. I mean, it's crazy. I've obviously become responsible again for a little puppy, which means now that I can't just up and go because someone has to look after this dog. It's like 4 months old, and I can't just leave her on her own. So now I'm kind of asking family members to help, and my sister's got to like look after her while I go here, and my mom and my sister-in-law, my brother, or whoever. And it's a responsibility. So I can only imagine how much worse it is for parents, because you can't just palm your kids off on anybody. Someone has to be there to look after them. No. Anyway, a couple of comments here quickly before we get to Dr. Hanan. Carl DeSantos says, don't you think that Bill Maher looks like he has clammy, moist hands?
Ew.
I don't know about that.
That's that guy. Hi, my name is Neville.
Oh.
And gives you that soppy handshake.
Yeah. Congo Chris says, I'm not surprised. Cyril the squirrel squirreling away a few nuts. Playbook straight for a playbook straight from the Zuma playbook. Yeah, you see, everybody thinks, and I don't know why the media, especially the big media houses in this country, seem so hell-bent on like cheerleading for Cyril. It's unbelievable. They're the same people who keep telling us every other day that Jacob Zuma is the most evil person who's ever lived. But they won't say a bad thing about Cyril. They just mostly ignore any of the stories about him that aren't great. On a different note, we're never going to have Ass and Borge together on a Friday anymore. Well, don't say never, because it's quite possible you will. I got to tell you, Gord Laws sent me the funniest voice note the other day.
Oh yeah,
because he's in Ireland at the moment. I think Gord.
Oh, did he go? Ryanair is his transporter.
Well, no. So he's got this character that he's Hard Eddie. I don't think we're revealing anything to anyone who's like never known, but he does that 4 ways boot Hard Eddie, right? I didn't realize he had a character called Rodger, Rodger, who's from Rhodesia. Listen to this quickly. This is hilarious. Just to play. Hang on a second. Let me just play this for you if I can. Hang on.
Bloody Gareth. Hang on. Just wanted to go and check in with you and see how everything's going there in Rhodesia. Of course, I'm abroad with my travels. Currently finishing up in Ireland. It's bloody magnificent though.
Anyway, he's doing this, and he sent me like 10 voice notes over the weekend, Gord. So we got to get him on. Speaking of Fridays, maybe he'll be able to join us this Friday. All right. It's that time of day where we get to check in with our shrink. It's our moment on the couch where we get to spill the beans, and it's going to be okay with Dr. Hanan Bushkin. It's great to have the doctor on every week. If you have a particular problem that you would like him to address, please email us, contact@cliffcentral.com, and we will put you on to him. Hey, Doc.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
You're looking fresh and ready to tackle the week?
Absolutely. Freezing cold, but fresh.
So we've got Michelle, who's on the line. And Michelle wants to tell us about a problem that is quite common, I think, in many relationships. She sent us a message, and this is what she said. I'm fairly certain that my husband is depressed. After 8 years of marriage, I'm at my wit's end, and his moods and anger, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time around him. He has spurts of good days, but even those are tainted with mood swings, lack of interest, and central gloom, general gloom. So she says essentially that she's being gaslighted or gaslit. And she wants to know, Doc, what you think of this. So I'm going to put her on. Michelle, we're not going to put on your video, but we'll put you on with just audio so that you can explain to the doc in your own words what's going on here, and maybe he can give you some direct advice. Hey, Michelle, how's it?
Morning. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for bringing this to us. I know that sometimes people are a bit nervous to share this kind of thing, but who knows? Your story might be able to help so many others who are going through the same thing. I don't know why, but Dr. Hanan has just disappeared. So let me just try and get him back. But did I get that more or less correct, that you feel like, your marriage is really getting untenable because your husband doesn't realize that he's depressed? Is that more or less
That's right. Yeah. Look, you can tell Doc, he can show his face because my video is off, so it's not that frightening at this time of the morning. It's safe to come back, Doc. You all right?
Let me get him back up here, because otherwise there's no point. There's no advice Leigh-Ann and I can give you.
No.
Well, I've listened to you guys long enough to realize that Leigh-Ann probably has a similar, if not worse, story. So
she always has a similar, if not worse, story to pretty much everybody who's ever been on the show. Hey, Doc, I don't know why, but you disappeared for a bit there.
Yes, right, so, I know.
Let me put you on to Michelle and let her tell the story to you in her own words. Go ahead, Michelle.
Great.
Morning, Doc. How are you?
Morning. How's it, Michelle?
So Gareth summarized the email that I sent through, but in a nutshell, it has been, I said 8 years, it's actually 10 years of marriage, 2 small, great kids. But for the last, I would say, 7 or 8 years, I've been getting more and more lonely in my own marriage. I've had to jot down a few notes just so I could keep it within context, because I realize we have a very small gap here. So this is not a full session, but I'm walking on eggshells 24/7 around him. I never know when he's going to go from happy and laid back to being triggered by something that happens. And I think the biggest issue at the moment is he's being triggered by everything, and every event elicits the same reaction. And by events, it's a small sort of thing from, let's say, a pizza gets delivered and it doesn't have the bacon on he's requested, or the kids are making a loud noise in the car. Small everyday things that happen in life that the rest of us have become used to dealing with. And I think I say to him, pick your battles probably 10 times a day, because it's exhausting watching him get so emotionally responsive to every single thing. He's then triggered so badly by something I will do that I'll get ignored for a day, a week, 2 weeks at a time. He tends to retreat. He'll go into the room and lie down and sleep for hours to a full day. And I'm left sort of trying to absorb the absence and buffer my children from a very, very quiet household. I listened to your show last week, and you mentioned there needing to be an equal push and pull. And for me, the push is quite strong at the moment, but there's no pull. And so I want to stay in this marriage. I want to make it work. I know that there are good days, and I want to try and get those back. I think my biggest issue, and what I'm trying to get to, is I do think he needs help, professional help. We have been in marriage counseling before, but I do believe he needs one-on-one help, and potentially down the line meds. I've never, I'm not a huge advocate for meds. I do believe talking about it can be the first step, but I don't know how to approach it with him, because he is vehemently against any form of mental health. And I keep trying to explain to him, if I fell down the stairs and broke my leg, that visible injury, just because it's visible, makes it no less important than something going on in his brain. So my question to you is, can you fix my marriage of a decade? Probably not right now. But what is your advice to me on how to broach it with him, how to go about trying to just help him manage manage his moods and manage his reaction to every single little thing that happens in his life. Because I'm
Right.
exhausted.
I hear you. And what you're describing again, it's very, very common. I hear this quite a lot. I'll see many women and many men individually in my practice, and they say my partner is going through this issue or that particular emotional problem or that particular mental health challenge, and they're either not willing to acknowledge it, or they acknowledge it but not necessarily willing to get some help. And the problem is that it doesn't just affect them, it affects the family unit, it affects the people that are around them. And you mentioned that you've got 2 kids, and I always say to parents that the moment you have kids, there's a responsibility, not just for you to be better for you, but for you to be better for your kids. Because what kids tend to do is they tend to copy paste. They see and feel what's going on in their environment, and they go out of their way when they're old enough to go and repeat exactly what they feel. So human beings, we don't create what we want, we just recreate, we repeat what we know, what is familiar to us. And as a father, I'm sure he's got great love for his kids. I'm assuming, you'll tell me if it's otherwise. And unfortunately, kids adapt. And he comes home and the kids, I'm sure, love him and they accept him unconditionally. But behind the scenes, he's creating a pattern in them, a familiarity in them that is unhealthy. Because if you had to ask him, and I wish he was here, because if I had to ask him, would you like your kids to go through what you're going through? Would you like your kids to live through what you're living through? He would clearly say, absolutely not. And my feedback to him would be, well, that's exactly what you're creating. So he mustn't see the world through his eyes because he's staying and he's remaining in his comfort zone. He must see the world through what he's creating in his kids. But I also want to tell you that the difference there's a great difference between logic and emotion. So you can explain to him all you want why his behavior is dysfunctional, why his behavior is not working for the rest of the family, why the patterns of what he's doing and what he's feeling and the way he's conducting himself is actually affecting everybody in a negative way. And logically, he might understand you because he's obviously compos mentis. He has moments of maturity and he'll look at you and he'll nod and he'll agree. But emotions work on a different frequency. So whilst he must understand logically, emotionally, once he hits that moment of immaturity, impulsivity, low moments, low moods, high moods, the logic goes out the window. So it's not about him sitting and understanding it, because I'm sure he can repeat it to you 1,000,000 times in a very mature way. It's about him changing particular patterns. And the truth is, I see it, and this is a very, very common thing, is that the individuals that come into the practice that are severely depressed or are severely anxious or have these high or very low moods, they cannot help themselves. So as much as he would want to help himself, the truth is he can't pick himself up using his own shoestrings. He needs to get fundamental help. And so to answer your question of what should you do, I'll say 2 things. First of all, people change for one of 2 reasons. 1, because they want to, or 2, because they have to. Those are the only 2 reasons why people are motivated to step out of their comfort zone. Otherwise, why would you step out of your comfort zone? There's no reason. The brain is, the human brain and the human mind is really constructed to conserve energy, and we conserve energy in our comfort zone. So he's not motivated to step out of his comfort zone. He's going to stay within his comfort zone unless he wants to or unless he has to. Now, I can tell you that we have no chance at the moment with him wanting to, because he doesn't want to. He wants to stay in his comfort zone. So what I suggest is that we make it a have to. We create not just the carrot, the wanting to change, but we create the stick. And what I suggest is that you set specific boundaries, specific restrictions, specific rule sets with consequences for him getting help or for him not getting help. So I would sit him down and I would go, right, the way the game is being played between us at this present moment is not working. It's not working for me. It's not working for you. It's not working for our kids, and it's not working for our family structure. Now, by the way, just as a side note, prize one, and I completely agree with you, is to stay in the marriage and make the marriage work, because nothing beats a solid, healthy family structure. Nothing beats that. That's healthy for everybody. So what I would say is I will turn to him and I will go, at the moment, the way the game is played between you and the rest of the family is not working. This is what I need you to do, and you can't help himself. You can't help yourself. So I know you want to. I know you understand it. I know it's reasonable for you to make the change, but you can't do this by yourself. I'm happy to hold your hand. I'm happy to go with you to someone that might be able to get you from point A to point B. But let me explain to you what happens if you don't do it. If you don't do it, here are the consequences. Now, Michelle, I don't know what you're able to implement as a consequence, but maybe sit down, maybe spend maybe half an hour, 2 hours today, maybe by yourself or maybe with loved ones, and ask yourself, what am I prepared to initiate as a consequence? Now, I wouldn't go to consequence 10 and say to him things that, one, you're not able to do, or things that you're not prepared to do. So, for example, I wouldn't say, listen, if you don't seek help, then I am out of the marriage, because maybe you're not prepared to do that. But I would say, if, for example, you're not prepared to help and I've booked a session for you, it's at Wednesday at 2 o'clock, I'm coming to pick you up. We're going together to see professional A or professional B. And if you don't come with me, then I'm going to have to move in with my sister. Or if you don't come in with me, then unfortunately what will happen is I'll have to pull back from our relationship. If you don't come with me, then I'm going to initiate consequence A, consequence B, or consequence C. Because otherwise, if you don't initiate or use the stick, then he's not motivated to actually make the change. That will be your first step, at least from our perspective.
And that sounds so logical and simple in its application. But my issue is that he is in complete denial about there being anything wrong. So
yeah.
To answer your first comment, he's a wonderful father, excellent dad. When people say mom and dad's babysits, we are equal parents. We share the load. From that point of view, he's wonderful. My children are quite nervous of him. They walk around on eggshells as well. He does not see it. And every time it comes up, he will stand up and leave the room and not speak to me for weeks. I can't even broach the subject with him. And if it does get to the point where we are then able to get into a discussion, excuse me, not used to talking this much this early in the morning. When we are able to get into a discussion, he will then turn it around and blame it on me and make me look like I'm the one with the issue. And I am by no means a perfect human being, but I'm fully aware I am not.
You know, Michelle, we're definitely going to run out of time, but you must email me directly, and I want to guide you. I don't want to leave you hanging. But I will say that, as you can see, by the way, that he's using consequences against you as a reason to step within his comfort zone. So he's saying, I'm not going to change, and if you force me to, then I'm not going to speak to you, and I'm going to initiate consequence X, Y, and Z. So he's using the same strategy against you, and I would like you to turn it around, and not with the aim of punishing him, but with the aim of actually making him change and changing the family dynamic and the family structure.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much for the
You must be in touch.
Michelle, I'm really pleased that Dr. Hanan is going to be able to make time for you outside of this, because it sounds to me like a little bit of a complicated situation. It's a lot more complex than what you said in your email, and I wish we had more time, but I'm sure that you guys can come on and give us an update once things have started moving, and even if that's a couple of weeks, months in advance. I think now we're all part of the story, and you can obviously
well, it's been 10 years. What's another couple of months, right?
Right, exactly. But chin up, and obviously we'll be thinking of you with this very awkward situation you have to deal with, and I appreciate you bringing it to us.
Thank you. I appreciate your guys' time and support. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it. Have a lovely rest of your week.
Okay, be in touch, Michelle.
Thank you.
Will do.
All right, we'll make sure we get Michelle in touch with you, Doc. But thanks for that.
Yeah, pleasure. You know, these situations are really complex and complicated. And this show, even though we spend 10 or 15 minutes on a particular issue, there's longevity, and obviously we're prepared to continue the conversation until we get the help. And there's always help. There's always a solution, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Hanan Bushkin. It's always good to see you. We will catch up with you in a week's time.
See you then. Have a good week, guys.
Very good. And if you have a problem of your own or something that you want to bring to our attention, so maybe we can help you, and by helping you help other people, as in the case of Michelle, then let us know. Send us an email, contact@cliffcentral.com. We want to hear from you. It is 7 o'clock. We'll be back with a whole lot more, including Collectomania coming up next. Leigh-Ann, Mole, and I are ready to keep you busy all of Monday morning.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
But this pre-qualification that's on the sites, essentially,
on our platform.
yes, this is a way of seeing your affordability before you go ahead and do any of those extra
Yes,
steps.
it gives you an indication of would you get finance for this car?
Yes.
Would you get finance for this particular car? And you can go onto Auto Trader's platform and go onto the finance part, and you can even navigate from any car that you're searching on, where you can go and get what we call pre-qualification. Which means that we will check for you against your credit score, the car itself, and your affordability, and get you an indication. It's not approval.
Yeah.
It's just an indication.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Do you suffer from collectivism?
I started collecting when I was about 8 years old.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
I sort of got into collecting TV cars.
Are you a fanatic? A devotee? Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
When lockdown hit, when everyone was kind of bored at home, they started Googling, like, what are these things worth these days?
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating.
The frame's total value is probably about 12,000 Rand.
Possibly a little weird.
I developed this infatuation with the Statue of Liberty.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop. Yes, very, very good. We are live. It is Monday morning and things are happening. What would Griselda Zelda say? We are alive. It are Monday. Where are we? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Griselda Zelda, SABC, 4 ways, Johannesburg, Gauteng, South Africa, the world.
All right.
That
so
was always my favorite.
Talk about this morning.
Snooky Zikalala, who was reporting from Paris. And I mean, in those days, the SABC didn't send you overseas for, as a journalist. It was just seen as like a waste of money. That was before they started wasting money. But in the days when it was really a privilege to get out of Johannesburg, that was when Snooky, they sent him to Paris. And he was so excited about being out of South Africa that his sign-off was Snooky Zikalala, SABC, Paris, France.
That's beautiful. France, yeah. I had to give you the complete geographic location. All right, so we got an awesome collectomania this morning. Rael from the South African Gold Coin Exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, they sponsor this, but he has a subject that he's been toying with us. He said to us at our last meeting, he wants to talk about the dark side of collecting, because obviously there are a whole lot of criminals involved in collecting stuff too. We know about art treasures. We know about things that have been stolen from museums. And he's going to be telling us about the dark side of collecting today, which I think is a fascinating discussion. So we're going to talk about some of the things that have been withdrawn from auctions, some things that have been passed around from collector to collector that actually should not be allowed to be publicly traded. And we'll talk a little bit about what's allowed and not allowed in South Africa when it comes to that sort of thing. So I think it might be a really, really interesting episode today. I would very much like to hear. Yeah, I'd like to hear from you. What else you'd like us to focus on? And if you know somebody who collects something interesting, or you yourself collect something interesting, tell us about it. Send us an email, contact@cliffcentral.com, and the producers will get a hold of you. And hopefully we can share the joy of your collections. And none of the dark side of collecting. We'll get to that. All right.
It would be nice to hear from someone who collects NFTs, because that's a thing now.
Well, it was definitely a thing before the internet started to, take note of the world economy, take note of inflation, when people were just messing around with money, when they had extra money lying around and NFTs were on the up and up. I don't know how many of those NFTs are worth more now than they were then. And I don't know whether that's likely to carry on. I'm not the expert here. We did have two guys on to talk about NFTs not so long ago, and they were very, very informative. But if you ask me what they told me, I can't tell you. I've just completely gone blank. Last night, says EP47, I had a woman complain about how needy and dirty her two dogs are. I later realized she's actually talking about the two men in her life. Wow. Jesus. That is awful. Wow. All right. And then Jamie says we're talking about legacy today. It sounds like a theme for the show. Gareth's endeavors, Leigh-Ann's celebration of milestone birthdays, John Burks' passing, Michelle's husband. Maybe it is about legacy. I don't know. That is what you do while living that is bigger than life itself, she says. We should all think like this at some point. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to think about the future when you're in survival mode, which is the case for so many people. True. So many people are so busy thinking about just making it through the day, just getting the basics done, just ticking those boxes, that to ask them to think about legacy and, what you'll leave behind, that's a tough ask for some people.
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten about that spider that you murdered live on air, Leigh-Ann Mole. You should be obviously embarrassed by that, according to Congo Chris. Gareth,
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, what can we do? I collect water when there's no water, Nishan says. You see, again, we're into survival mode.
Yeah, exactly. Filling up the bath. There was a huge water outage in, when I say the Randburg area, it affects so many areas of Johannesburg.
Randburg?
Yeah, but it affects about 60 suburbs. So yeah, there were people filling up their baths so that they could flush their poops.
Oh,
crazy.
Okay. Not great.
No.
Oh man, I'm very I bought firewood last week. I forgot to tell you, this is very exciting. This is like the highlight of my life. But I gotta say, like, buying firewood was a big, expensive thing. I thought about it and I ummed and ahed, and I was like, it's quite, it's pricey, because if you buy firewood in those packets and they deliver it, like I bought 40 of them and they delivered in a big bucky, and you think, Jesus, that's a lot of money for firewood, stuff that it's in. I'm really burning cash. I might as well take.
Yeah, you're watching your cash burn.
Yeah, throw it in the fire, except obviously the firewood will burn a bit longer. It does mean I can have some braais. It does mean I can have fires going to keep things warm in the winter if I have people around, or even if it's just me. One of the most self-indulgent things I do is sometimes in the depths of winter, we're not there yet, but those mornings where you wake up and your balls, well, you don't have balls, Leigh-Ann, but
well, it was because of that one particularly cold winter that I don't have balls.
But when your toes are freezing in your shoes, and
for me, it's like my nose and my bum. When my nose and my bum are freezing, then I know it's like
your bum cheeks or your asshole itself.
Cheeks.
Okay.
No, the asshole's well tucked away and warm. I mean the actual cheeks.
Okay, well, when you're that cold, and everybody knows how that feels, then the most self-indulgent thing I do, I'm kind of embarrassed about it because I'm the only one that gets to enjoy it, but bugger it, that's what I work for, is I'll make a fire. And I'll sit and work in front of that fire the whole day.
But it's one of those things that you have to say to yourself, I need to enjoy this because I'm burning money.
Well, exactly. So
you speak to yourself like your dad would. No, you better enjoy this moment.
Yeah, I know. But that's a proper winter privilege that I think I might indulge in that soon. sooner rather than later, but it has to be super cold. Otherwise, I can't justify it in my head. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
not cold enough yet. And June, towards the end of June, sure. But if I do this before the 20th of June, it would be embarrassing. Also got a friend who's coming up. She's been through all kinds of shit, like so many people in Umhlanga and Durban and northern KZN, with all of the riots last year, then water issues, electricity issues, then the floods, then the other floods. So like so many people, I think she just needed a break. So she said she's going to come and spend a night or two here. So I'll have to entertain her and otherwise find some other things to do over the weekend. But that's a long way away. It's only Monday. Before that comes along, there'll be a whole lot more to do. Yeah. Let's take your comments, your calls, your thoughts on the contact at Cliff Central email address. You can also drop us a comment straight away into the comment section. Just by the way, talking about firewood, apparently it's a very controversial thing. I never thought it would be, but I thought it's worth mentioning on the show. Like if they are harvesting the firewood from indigenous forests, it can be a criminal business. Firewood is obviously, if you're getting it from forests that are grown especially to be used for firewood or for paper or whatever else, like they plant lots of different kinds of trees that grow quite fast. But if it comes from an indigenous forest, you can get into some trouble. Apparently, there are rules around this. Like certain firewood, if you're burning like yellow wood, you're in big trouble. The guy was telling me when he delivered.
And it's something that we sometimes don't think about because we just buy it off the side of the road, and we don't ask questions.
Yeah. That happens to a lot of people. This guy who delivers to me, I've been buying firewood from him for like the last 5 years, and he sources it very carefully. It's all very legit. They supply overseas as well, so they have to make sure that they don't have all kinds of funny insects in there because otherwise they can't export the stuff. But it's amazing how much you can burn through. I mean, even the really good like hardwood stuff, which you're supposed to burn much slower than everything else, you can go through that in a matter of minutes, especially if it's really cold and you need a big fire. So it's just something to think about. I'm not the only one. Carl's also into this. I've already lit 5 indoor fires. It's been lovely. A lovely single malt whiskey and a fire. Nice. See, that sounds good. I can totally see that happening. That's the way.
You also get those eco turds, which you put into the fire, and they're long lasting and all the rest of it.
Aren't they they're called eco turds, aren't they?
Yeah, that's why I said it.
Such a sexy word, isn't it? It's a beautiful way to put it. I put it to you that it are eco turd. Beautiful. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I'm also, sort of curious about the way that people are going to cut down on travel. We spoke about this just the other day with Pumi too, where if you don't have to go somewhere, don't. If your gym isn't within a very short distance from your house, rather just go back to training at home like you did under lockdown, just to save petrol money. You have to find reasons to not go out, reasons to not go to the office if it's not absolutely necessary, because of the cost of fuel. It's just horrible to look at that fuel meter on your car and think, oh my God.
Talk about burning money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
And that's the thing now is that, businesses are starting to implement maybe 20 hours a week in the office or 40. And my answer to them is, well, do you know how much it costs me to get there?
Well, I meant to ask you about this because there's this pensioner who was scammed out of 2.3 million rand after being assured her money would double in 4 days. Now, I always feel so much worse when it's an old person who's conned into this stuff because they don't know about NFTs or Bitcoin or any of that shit, and they hear it going around, and they're likely to be ensnared by it, especially if it's an old person who's, maybe they have no friends and family around anymore. Maybe their kids have left the country. Maybe they are supporting their grandchildren, as is the case with so many grandparents in South Africa. And sometimes someone comes along with a proposition and they're very convincing because they're good actors. They can put on a good show. They can explain things away. They sound like they know what they're doing. And you can always say, oh, well, you stupid, gullible idiot. You deserve to be taken advantage of. But I always feel a little bit sorry for old people. I'm not sure why.
Mm. Yeah, and it's one of those things where older people, if you just think about their Facebook journey, how many of these older people might in the Facebook search bar type in something that they think they're searching for, but they're actually updating their status.
Correct.
You can't actually expect them to know everything like we do.
No.
And I was actually quite surprised to know how much money this person had lost. I mean, 2.3 million is a heck of a lot for a pensioner. But she was apparently approached by another female friend in Mahikeng.
It's like a lifetime of saving, right?
Wow, huge. And she was taken to a house where several men introduced themselves as traditional healers. They apparently prayed for the pensioner, called upon her ancestors to bless her, and then she was informed that she would double her money within 4 days if she invests. And obviously that money completely disappeared.
Ugh, that's really shitty.
So 3 men from Uganda, actually, at least 2 of them were from Uganda, have been arrested by the Hawks. One man actually handed himself in. This is what happens. It doesn't exclude anyone. Remember in March, there was a guy who was dubbed South Africa's Tinder swindler.
Yes, I remember that.
Amon Namara. He scammed a Sandton-based woman that he met on Tinder. He was released on 500,000 Rand bail. So yes, the woman who actually led to the charging and arrest of these Ugandan nationals had herself lost 3 million Rand to him.
Right.
We're talking it's like staggering amounts here.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's so ugly when it happens to, I say like particularly old people, but this could happen to anyone. Why are we so dumb in South Africa that it's always foreigners who are scamming us? Like, what do they learn at school that we don't learn at school? Because
is there a subject?
Like Cyril having all that money stolen out of his farm, like $4 million or whatever, it was Namibians. This one is Ugandans. Very often you hear it's Nigerians. So what are they teaching them in the rest of Africa that we're too doff to learn? That's the real question. Maybe something uncomfortable people don't want to deal with. But why are we so stupid in this country that we can be scammed so easily? I say that as someone who was scammed just last year. You remember when I was trying to buy a puppy for my parents and they nailed me. And I thought I was dealing with real people here. So it happens to all of us. Or maybe I'm just one of the doff people. You can tell me if you think I'm stupid. It's quite possible that I am. But it happens to lots of us, not just the very old or the very naive.
Yeah. And like I said, there was someone who was trying to scam me when I was selling an item on Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
And then what I do is if I think that anything is suspicious, don't be suspicious. Then I make the point of exchange. I say will be at a police station, and that usually scares them off.
Yeah, that's quite a good move. But it's so difficult. You just wish you lived in a world where you could trust each other. But there are a lot of crooks, and they're all over the place. I've been going into podcasts and listening to stuff that I've never listened to before. And actually, someone suggested a podcast to me the other day. So we don't only promote our own podcasts here. This one is fascinating. It's called The Just Enough Family. Yeah, I'm going to find a picture of this and put it up on the screen for you. Here it is. Like that's their logo. The Just Enough Family. It's the story of this very wealthy family in New York. They made an absolute fortune. Like the guy Saul Steinberg, who was the founder of the kind of family fortune. This guy in the 1970s was the richest person, the youngest new millionaire. In other words, he made money out of, he didn't inherit any. He didn't get any from a friend or get on the board of some company. He was a self-made millionaire at, I think, under 30 years old, and he was a self-made billionaire before he became 40. But it details the fall of this family from like this extraordinary place of huge success and lots of money, and just they'll never have to worry about ever running out of money, to how it all ended, which is unbelievable. So I'm really wrapped up in this at the moment. And again, it just shows you, like, there's no place in, it doesn't matter how much you have, where you can't lose it all like that. And it doesn't matter how poor you are, there's no way in the world that you could say for sure that someone will never actually end up hugely rich and wealthy. Money is so difficult to figure out. And when you think about these scams and things, how many people who are brilliant and who've made lots and lots of money get scammed out of it. And also the people who are scamming are obviously making themselves very, very rich very, very quickly. So it's an amazing thing to listen to. And I'm always looking for more podcasts. So if you have any suggestions, you should let us know too. Just drop us an email, contact@cliffcentral.com. All right, Leigh-Ann, what is mermaiding? What the hell is mermaiding? And how far have we fallen as a civilization? This is a thing that people are doing.
It's becoming a big thing in South Africa. Okay, so this is close to home for us.
All right.
It's being recognized as a sport. Okay. And it's literally people dressed as mermaids and mermen. So putting on those like maybe a tank top or a bikini top, and then those kind of onesie tail suits where you put both your legs into one opening, and you have fins and tail fins coming off of that as well. Yeah. And frolicking around in swimming pools and bodies of water as these mystical sea creatures. It's a fast-growing sport worldwide. And now we even, it's called a sport. Well, if you think about synchronized swimming, and in fact, a lot of synchronized swimming trainers are being brought in for this sort of thing. Yeah. That's a sport. It's at the Olympics.
No, synchronized swimming is a sport because you really have, your timing has to be immaculate. You have to be in excellent shape. You have to be able to hold your breath for a long time. Mermaiding, no. Come on.
It's exactly the same. It's all about breath holding, synchronization. And there is a school in South Africa now called the Mer School.
The Mer School. Oh, okay. Tell me more.
And this thing I was talking about that you wear is actually called a monofin. The swimmers are aged from between 13 and into their 40s. They include at the moment the ones that are at top of their class: a school teacher, a yoga instructor, even an accountant. There's a mermaiding instructor. Her name is Isel Nair. And she says it's for fitness, for fun, for fantasy, it's therapy, but most of all, mermaiding is a sport. So it's all about undulating up and down in the pool, perfecting dolphin kicks, practicing sculling, which is hand movements to propel the body, also used in synchronized swimming.
It sounds ridiculous. I'm sorry. It sounds ridiculous. Now, I would love to, and I support anybody who's doing something new and innovative, but it's only a matter of time before someone drowns. Someone wearing a single, like you've got your fin instead of your feet, and then someone can't kick fast enough or whatever, or it weighs them down because the outfit is more important than actually surviving as a swimmer, and they'll end up drowning. And then everyone will go, "Oh, this mermaiding, we've got to stop it. It's an absolute problem." Also, if you're 40 years old, especially, let me just say, and I know it's wrong to discriminate here, but look at who you're dealing with. Can I just say that if you're a man and you're anything over 17 years old and you're mermaiding, you've got a hand in your card. I'm sorry, you're not a guy anymore. That's an embarrassment. It's like if you're a guy and you're so into like Spider-Man beyond the age of 30. I can't take a person seriously. In fact, 30 is even old. Like if you are a massive Spider-Man fan and you collect Spider-Man memorabilia, we're doing Collectomania just now, and Spider-Man is your hero, but you're like over 30 years old, I kind of hope you don't have kids, and I hope you don't have real-world responsibilities, because you sound like you might be dangerous to somebody. I know,
So
very judgy.
you wouldn't be proud if your son said to you, I'm off to, and this is a thing, the World Mermaid Championships in China.
Yeah,
next year.
I don't know that I'd be proud as a father. Let me put it that way.
Well, watch the space. It might become an Olympic sport, who knows?
I hope not. I hope with every fiber in my being that I turn this into an Olympic sport. I love chess. I love the idea that there are people in the world who are good at playing all kinds of games and doing all kinds of hobbies. I just don't think all of them should be Olympic sports. Some of it is just, it's not serious. This is not a serious thing. If you are mermaiding on the weekend, what are we doing this weekend, Delilah? I'm going to go mermaiding. I love mermaiding. I'm going to put on my mermaid outfit and my little bikini top, and I'm going to splash around in the pool like I'm a mermaid. Sorry.
And then, of course, you get people who actually think that they are mermaids, right?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Antonio says, how's mermaiding different from Siv and Gessie doing pole dancing? No. Pole dancing requires enormous physical fitness. It's very difficult. We've been over this, Antonio. I couldn't do pole dancing if I tried. Do you know that those people can hold themselves up just by their ankles at the top of a pole, and they don't slip down and they don't break their neck like I might? That takes some skill. Anything that takes huge athletic or mental control, and that not everybody can do. In other words, if you can't do it first time, then it requires some skills. So I don't think mermaiding. I think everyone could do mermaiding the first time.
I don't know so much. If I had to put my feet into those things, I'd probably sink to the bottom of the pool. Not even my boobs would keep me afloat.
Well, I'm not alone here. Sanela agrees with me 100%. You have to forfeit your man card if you're a Spider-Man fan or you mermaid or whatever. Beyond a certain age, it's not on anymore. It's just not acceptable. Sorry.
I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge. I'd like to see it.
That's why I'm here. You bring on the story. I'll judge the hell out of it. Thank you very, very much. I don't get it. All right. So we've got lots of things to talk about this morning, but I want to bring in Rael Demby, who we've had on the show once or twice before. He, of course, is the man behind the South African Gold Coin Exchange and then the Coin Shop, which obviously these are the people who've been so clever and so brilliant and have helped partner with us to allow all these people in South Africa and the world to share their collections. And this morning, while I do want to spend a little bit of time just asking Rael about the rules around gold, because I know that's something he knows very well, I just want to talk about the dark side of collecting. And this is something I've been... Well, Rael, he just dropped it in at a meeting the other day. He's like, yeah, guys, why don't we talk about the dark side of collecting? So everybody in the meeting went, and turned to him like this. And he said, yeah, there's quite a lot that happens in the world that is either, it's the sort of thing that is completely illegal, or it involves people trading in stuff which is sort of a gray area, historical memorabilia, stuff that's been stolen from museums. I remember when America invaded Iraq, and I thought, there's going to be a sudden profusion into the market of ancient Mesopotamian, Persian, Babylonian, Sumerian artifacts, things that really should belong to humanity, but that are now going to be scattered all over the world. And a lot of it will probably end up in the hands of private collectors, which means we'll never be able to trace it again, because as long as it stays in those private collections, how do you know? Yeah, there's no way to trace it. So Rael's got some really interesting stories too to share with us about the dark side of collecting. And I think it's the perfect opportunity to bring him back in and to find out what these stories are. You're going to love this stuff. Hey, Rael, how's it, man? How are you?
What's up? How are you? How's it going?
Good. Nice to see you.
First
of all, I've just got to say that if people had listened to you the last time you were on the show about gold, what is the only thing that has gone up in value in the economy right now? And we're talking about U.S. stock market, local. We're talking about Bitcoin. If they'd bought some gold from you, Rael, they would be very happy with that, wouldn't they?
They would be very happy, or they would be less unhappy.
Let's put it that way, yeah. Less
That's
unhappy.
that's the idea of hedging. When everything else goes up, gold goes down, and it's the same all the time. The history shows, and yeah, what can I say? We told you so, and we're going to keep telling you so. Just a little bit of gold when you can, and that's the plan.
Yeah, the nice thing about it, obviously, also is that people can, you've told us before on the show, you can own a Kruger Rand, but you can also own. There are smaller denominations that you can get. You guys also sold platinum and silver, which are really good investments too. So people must go and check out your website.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. It's been a good ride so far. We got shops around the country, online store, and some really smart salespeople and experts in coins. So whatever you like, whatever you want to start with, we've got someone there to help you. And we want to spread the word of gold as often as we can.
The word of gold. I love that. No, it's absolutely right. And there's something about having an actual gold coin in your hands that makes you suddenly feel like you're doing well. That's the best feeling in the world. I can promise you that. All right. So one of the things that we've done over the last few months with the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop is that we've managed to find unbelievable collections of all kinds of weird things. We've spoken to people who've got, just a few things. Some people who've got incredible collections that really should be in a museum. And I keep thinking that, there are so many collections still to be discovered. You brought up in a meeting the other day, and I mentioned this just now in the introduction, that you also wanted to talk about the dark side of collecting, because here we are going, oh, that's really nice. You got 500 pairs of shoes like Imelda Marcos. But what about these people who are trading sometimes on the dark web or in the underground in things that you're actually not allowed to trade in? And we often hear stories about buried treasure or about, sunken ships where they found a chest full of gold that the pirates took in the 1600s. These things are real, though. They're actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt if you read the news or like you said, you'll see some sort of a historical moment happening, like a war. There's some army or journalists or sort of people running behind the scenes who can go in and cover historical pieces of like incredible value, and they're just sitting underground. They might not actually be in that museum. They could actually be being held up on a plinth at the bottom of the desert, and these are the kinds of things that people will do whatever it takes to take it and to hide it and to sell it or try to sell it. We've seen some of these items being put on auction, and big auction houses like Bonhams or Christie's or Sotheby's, they have to do a lot of homework to say, well, this is beautiful, this is real, but where did it come from? And there's been cases about 7-8 years ago where there was a steely, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Steel. I'll actually put a picture of it up. But before we get to that, I mean, I want to speak about that particular example, because when I saw the pictures, I was like, sure, if I had lots and lots and lots of money, I would pay whatever it took to have that. It's one of the most ancient things that you will find that's human, and we'll get to it in a second. But this sounds like Indiana Jones, and I can't help thinking of when, the opening scenes of, I think it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, where there's that little gold idol that's on a plinth in this underground like cave, and he puts the bag of sand down and he grabs it, and then this rock starts rolling towards him. I mean, it's the most, everybody has a little bit of a treasure hunter in them. And we all wonder if one day we might be able to find some beautiful historical artifact or some priceless object. And they are finding them all over the place. They discovered here in South Africa not so long ago. You know about this, Rael. The treasures of Mapungubwe, where there was gold that had been hammered into objects. There was a little rhino. These are the most beautiful things. And this is right on our own doorstep where nobody was looking. and there are treasures out there to be discovered.
Sure. I mean, we all start as little kids. Maybe it's toys that you put aside somewhere in your house or on the beach. You'll go and find the best seashells. So it's in our nature to collect things and to hoard. And as you get older, maybe these treasures turn into other things like people or finding the perfect girl or guy, or if a range of sneakers comes out, you maybe want the limited edition one, or if there's a thrift store and you find a jacket that you've thought, wow, this is cool, but maybe there's more value to that jacket or the pair of shoes that is sentimental, but also underlying, it's always like, wow, this is worth a lot. I'm going to sell this, or I'm going to keep this. And that treasure hunting ideology is true. I think we all have it inside of us.
Definitely. All right. So this is a Sumerian steel, an ancient Sumerian steel that you were talking about just now, or Assyrian, I think it might even have been. But this is just the bottom half of it, because the top half has gone missing. And this thing, they tried to trade this on the market, right?
Yeah, on a public market. Now, I had to Google the pronunciation of steel or steely. I got steely. I just wanted to make sure that it's a funny word to pronounce. But these things pop up. You know, the auction house is doing their best. They think everything is legitimate, and it might be. But then the roots behind it could be a Syrian theft that took place a year or two before. And Bonhams, the auction house who had this on, they had listed it for about $1 million, just a piece of rock. They had to take it off, and they claimed to say that they needed to study it further. And there's also been some South African artworks that have been taken off Bonhams. There was once a front cover picture, the front cover of the whole catalog. That picture, that artwork was fake. And, you know, these things make the auction house look bad, but, you know, fakes and forgeries are really easy to do. I mean, if you're professional enough, and like you see there, the theft of something, you know, it's all about KYC or go and find out where that item is from.
Apparently that's the Syrian steel that we put up just now. This thing is incredible. It was a broken stone slab, which I showed you a picture of just now. But imagine if you're driving and you're listening and you can't see the actual picture. It's basically the bottom half of what would have been a king. So you see his feet and his sort of lower body, and then there's a whole lot of cuneiform writing, which is the kind of writing that they used to do on tablets and clay. They used to use it as their major form of communication. They used it for accounting. They used it for language, everything. And cuneiform is these little, they look like little Y-shaped markings, and depending on how many you've got going left, right, up, down, that was the whole language of the Assyrians. And apparently it contains a curse in cuneiform, which would fall on anyone removing it from its site. And it was suspected of being looted from eastern Syria at an unknown date. The top half of the slab has been in the British Museum since the 19th century. Bonham says that the piece was withdrawn for further study, as you mentioned, Rael. But this is the kind of thing that a collector would go crazy for. I mean, if they were able to sell it, they probably would have been able to make way more than $1 million, right?
Absolutely. There's a brilliant show now on Disney called Moon Knight. And if anyone likes Egyptian history or the gods of Egypt or anything, this really speaks for it to the next level. It's a stunning show. And this idea of tracing and going back and the archaeology of it. Imagine if you were so wealthy that you didn't have to go to Egypt and bring your little brush and spade, and you just bought it in the comfort of your home. And your home becomes this like a few thousand year old legacy. I mean, these are for wealthy people, for extreme collectors of artifacts. And also there might be a competition between a museum and a wealthy person who finds a thrill of getting something that the museum can't.
I wonder, there's no way to know for sure what kinds of things are held in private collections, because some collectors are very secretive about what they've got. I mean, we have approached a number of people over the course of Collectomania, and some of them have said, look, I do have a collection. I'm very proud of my collection. I love it, but I don't think I want anyone else to know about it. Sometimes it involves, some very, very priceless work of art which hangs in their house, and they just don't want people to know that they've got it. For security reasons. But sometimes, who knows, it might be because there are museums looking for that thing. I mean, there are all those treasures, Rael, that were stolen during the Second World War by the Nazis. And there are still families all over the world that are actually fighting either Switzerland, where a lot of them were stored away in Swiss bank accounts, or Germany themselves, or like the descendants of the Nazis who have these works of art. There were especially with Jewish families during the Second World War who lost priceless things because they just had to leave in a hurry, get the hell out. Some of them obviously didn't get out, but some of that stuff was just seized by the Nazis.
Yeah, it's a big one. I mean, the amount of stuff that is sitting in Swiss banks right now, underground, there could be just untold fortunes with no traceability, no confirmation of the original owner. It's quite a sad thing, but also these items can't be sanctioned or pulled out just because they're there and they have someone else's name on it. So it's a sad thing. But that chase. Yeah.
I was reading about that supposedly the last Da Vinci painting, which is called, what is it? It's basically a portrait, supposed to be a portrait of Christ, that has actually been bought by the Saudi crown prince, and it's on his yacht. It's on the wall in his yacht. Now, I would think that's quite dangerous, considering that a yacht could hit some rocks and that could be the end of that painting. But apparently it's one of the most expensive paintings ever bought. And that's the one that he decided to buy for his private collection. And we only know about that because he actually admitted that he had it. Let's talk about ancient Egypt, because you mentioned Moon Knight, which a friend of mine said I've got to watch. Tutankhamun is probably one of the most famous pharaohs, not because he was a particularly impressive pharaoh, but because we found all his treasures. Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon discovered these in the 1920s, and it became like a sensation all over the world. Obviously, because you had these solid gold funerary masks, treasures, things that were 3,500 years old, that were pulled out of a place that obviously the only tomb in the Valley of the Kings that wasn't broken into by thieves over thousands of years. But there was some Tutankhamun stuff, wasn't there, that was stolen from the Louvre?
Yeah, so funny enough, the Louvre, they opened up in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago. There's only 2 Louvre museums in the world. And what was amazing to find out is that the ex-president of the Louvre, back in about 10 years ago, his name is Jean-Luc Martinez. He was charged with assisting in the trafficking of some of the most incredible artworks from the Middle East, from Egypt, and to bring them to the Louvre. I mean, this guy, he had everything in the world. He was the president of all the genuine art in the world, and he went and he transferred these objects to the Abu Dhabi Louvre. And I mean, these things it's unbelievable that he would do such a thing. But that's a little dark side of the moon.
Let me just show everybody here. Here's what it looks like. This is, again, to the untrained eye, just a piece of rock with some carvings on it. But this is actually from the time of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. I mean, it's incredible. This is a granite stele which has been inscribed with his seal. So that's how you know roundabout what dynasty it came from. But imagine the curator or the president of the museum actually being involved in the trafficking of these goods. Crazy, right?
Crazy. I mean, it's always about that thrill of the highest form of anything, and it could be the museum owner. And I want to get into the dark side and the hiding part of this. And art is, you don't really hide art; you get to enjoy it. There's utility to it. but there are a lot of people who buy things to hide things. Now, this isn't a talk show on SARS or VAT or tax, but the idea is that you can buy these things. You know, why would a billionaire buy $100 million painting like the Andy Warhol that went sold a couple of weeks ago with Marilyn Monroe? I think it was 150 million. Is that these people would have had to pay this money to the tax man. So this is the way of paying money for art, and they can keep the art in their house, and they could donate it back to a museum and get the tax back. And these are the smart things about collecting high value items. And as far as gold, you know, there are certain restrictions to FICA and SARS and what you can move in and out of the country. But at a grand scale, these are the kinds of things you need to understand. Is there's a reason why someone bought $100 million painting. It's not entirely for enjoyment, and that's why the price sometimes doesn't matter on the auction.
Are there people who've left the country with like lots of gold? I can imagine, because it's Krugerrand so much of the time. You must have heard stories. I mean, I'm sure that there are stories all over South Africa of like some woman who's got like, I don't know, 10 kilos of gold on her as she's going through the checkout and the check-in at the airport and like landing on the other side. And she's like, no, I wear this all the time. How much can you take through the airport?
So if it's a actual Krugerrand, there are limits imposed by the South African Reserve Bank. Some say, or it's likely to be 1 Krugerrand per passport. So that's if you've got a family of 5, you can take 5 Krugerrands out, which is not a lot of money in some cases, but in others it could be a new, fresh start of life. But the idea is that you cannot just take a briefcase or raw gold or jewelry. I mean, jewelry is one thing, but there was a story last year about some guys bringing some gold bars from here to Dubai, and they got caught, and they're in big trouble. So the Krugerrands, you need to declare it with SARS. You need to tell them this is how many I'm taking. It can be in your discretionary allowance. You can apply for more. You should just be responsible about it. You should not just take a tube of 20 Krugerrands, which is like 600,000 Rand or more, and just slip it up in your pocket or somewhere else with some Vaseline. You got to be really careful, right?
Oh, well, there go my plans for my trip to Tuscany.
Yeah. So it falls into the realm of what's right and legal, but there are other coins that have different consequences, like a Sammy Marks Tikkie, a felt point, a burger's point, any of the South African ZAR coins. It might have a gold value of 5 or 10,000 Rand, but the collectible value could be in the millions. Like a Sammy Marks Tikkie, you can put it in your pocket. You know, the guy at the airport says, this is cool. You say, yeah, cool, thanks. And then you could auction it off there in England or Germany or Switzerland for millions of dollars. So it's just like art, you know, coins.
You know, I mean, I'm not going to say that I would in any way endorse people doing criminal things, but I just hate the fact that governments all over the world are trying to get their hands on everybody's money. And there could be clever investments, and we know that very rich people do this with their money in order to keep it out of the hands of dirty politicians. They sometimes find clever ways of getting money from country A to country B without anybody knowing. What about Faberge eggs? Now, this is something I love. I actually managed to, at some point, like a couple of years ago, there are still factories in Limoges, I think, in France, where they make modern day Faberge eggs. But the famous ones are the ones that were made for the Russian czars. They used to give them as Easter presents to their families. The daughter would get a magnificent Faberge egg for a birthday or for some other special occasion. And these things are worth an absolute fortune. They've been traded, for hundreds of millions in some cases. They're full of jewels. Some of them are huge. They're like this big, and they've got clocks in them and all kinds of other things. And then some of them are small enough that you could put them in your pocket and just go through the airport and no one would know. You could put them on a little chain around your neck. But apparently there are some Russian oligarchs who have come into the possession of these things. And now it's become a bit of an issue with the Russia-Ukraine war, right?
Yeah, so these oligarchs would have received these over many years with a similar, I wouldn't call it money moving technique, but they would see more value in owning a few $1 million Faberge egg than having the cash, because it becomes nobody knows anything about it, untraceable. And then they would donate them or put them on at a museum. And then if you're an oligarch at the moment, you're really running around the world looking for a place to keep things. And some of these Faberge eggs are being held and sanctioned, and these guys can't get hold of them anymore, which is cool for the museum. But these guys are really running all over the world to look after. So actually that Da Vinci painting on the yacht is actually a bit smarter than you think. It's,
you're right.
You know, that could be his gateway out of everything.
Yeah, I mean, because let's just look at these Russian oligarchs. The reason that they're running around the world trying to find a place to store cash or to store value is because there are sanctions that have been brought against them. I mean, poor old Roman Abramovich's yacht is stuck somewhere. He can't take it anywhere. He can't sell it. He can't, pass it on to anybody. Because, I know, shame, but I mean, at the same time, if you've amassed a fortune and then the governments of the world, or Vladimir Putin in this case, decides to invade the Ukraine, suddenly something that you put maybe hundreds, maybe even billions, hundreds of millions, billions into is suddenly stuck, and it's not yours and it's not worth anything. Now, we've all lost some money somewhere. We talked about fraud just now, Leigh-Ann, 7 o'clock, and how many people get defrauded all the time. Maybe you took your engagement ring off once to wash your hands and you forgot it in some place. We know that feeling. Imagine losing a $1 billion painting or something like a Faberge egg. So these guys have to look after this stuff. So Rael, tell us just quickly, in South Africa, what exactly is the rule around people who, these guys who go into these illegal mines and they pull out some gold or whatever? What are the rules around that? Do you know what the actual,
cover my liabilities here, but the idea is that any unwrought gold, doré gold, which is like a mixture of other types of metals and gold, like an ugly looking bar, you can't really trade it in South Africa. The zama-zamas, the type of illegal mining, and these nuggets of gold are not allowed. You can't buy them, you can't sell them as far as like a professional institution goes. The idea is that any gold bar in South Africa must be created and minted by the Rand Refinery, the South African Mint. And there's a VAT component, which makes it even more official and part of the government. And this gold bar is like confirmed and numbered, and it's there and it's right. And these sort of wrought gold bars that maybe look a bit ugly, they're like, it's called a cast bar, those can't be freely traded in South Africa. And that's why the most official type of gold ownership would be a Kruger Rand, because it's like through the system, everybody knows what it is, and you stay in kosher. And if somebody calls us and says, hey, I got X kilograms of gold, and I say, cool, show me a photo, and it's usually a nugget or a piece of something like that, I say, no, we don't want to touch that. Sorry about that.
There's intrinsic gold there that's worth some money, but you don't want to get into the trouble of what
it's illegal. It's illegal to own unwrought gold in South Africa. That's simple.
So let's just talk for a second about fakes and forgeries, because there's a lot of that going on too. They say that there are over 40 million counterfeit watches in the world. So for all you know, these people who we've spoken to in our collections, they're obviously quite smart about this, but there might be other people who get caught out, and then you buy a watch that you think is worth 50,000 Rand, and it ends up being a fake or a forgery. How often do you guys encounter this? Because obviously people come to you with questions.
So I'll get into the coins, but first on the watches, Adrian from Luxury Time. These guys know what is fake and what isn't straight away. The only way you know about a fake is if you see enough real ones. And the fake watch market, I don't think it's really about people trying to deceive someone who wants a real one. It's more about how big the market is and how people can't afford a 100,000, 200,000 watch. They'll get one for 5,000. And these so-called super fakes or replicas, one for one, these are like incredibly beautifully designed. You cannot tell the difference between a Patek Philippe, that Tiffany, that blue Tiffany dial that was sold for like 90 million rand on auction, or you could get one for about 10,000 rand that looks 100% the same. And it's sort of like you can enjoy it, and like anyone can collect anything they like. But the purist, the real watch guy says, "Oh no, you're not playing to." I read something that said, "Fake people wear fake watches," and I don't know if that's totally right. Some people might just enjoy it, and the crossover between putting a fake in the hands of a real watch person, I think that is sort of an agreement, like you stay in your lane and we'll stay in yours. Just a friendly warning, don't ever take a fake watch to a real watch maker, like a real shop that fixes real watches. They'll see you from 5 meters away, they'll say, "That's fake, I'm not touching it." So just find your local watchmaker if you ever need help, or throw it away and buy a new one, because it would probably be cheaper.
That's amazing. All right, so we've only got a couple of minutes here, but I do want you to talk about the fake coins and the forgeries, because there's a lot of that goes on as well. And people buy stuff sometimes online. They buy things on eBay, for example, and a lot of that stuff is just bullshit.
Yeah. We use two of the biggest grading companies in the world, NGC, PCGS. NGC is the numismatic guarantor company. They confirm the value, the scale, the confirmation, the provenance of that coin, and we trust these grading societies to look after us. But these coins, like a Sammy Marks Tiki, Sammy Marks was able to go into the mint in the late 1800s and press his own coin as a favor from Paul Kruger. And he pressed these coins. He made about 215 of these coins. And these coins now, I mean, there's probably 20, 30 of these that have been graded and are still in good condition. And, 2-3 million rand for a 2,000 rands worth of gold is very, very possible. But at the same time, because it was so scarce and popular, people started making forgeries of it. So when somebody says, "I've got a Sammy Marks Tiki," you got to do a lot of homework before you really take it in and buy it. And that's the difference, is always speak to a professional, a friend, a dealer in that industry, whether it's sneakers to coins or anything in between. These people will spot the differences very, very quickly. And
so I've just put a picture up on the screen of a Sammy Marks Tiki. It's usually got the date, and then it's got a wreath on the obverse, and then on the reverse, it's got Paul Kruger's profile. And you say how many of these were made?
There was 215 of these that have been graded. I think they made a few more than that. No, 215. And a non-graded one could be a bit cheaper, maybe 400,000 or 500,000 rand. But these high-graded, perfectly conditioned ones could be 2-3 million rand at the moment.
Unbelievable! And someone somewhere in South Africa might have one of these just lying around.
I hope they do. Yeah, sure, they do.
Sure.
And I must look after them.
If you find one, and I mean, lucky you. You can pay off your bond.
Yeah, come and sell it to us, and we'll look after it. And do what you need to do, but always do your homework. Love what you do. Whatever you collect, when you're passionate about it, buy what you like. Don't buy what you think will make you the most money. And do your homework. Always look for help. and collecting is fun in all shapes and sizes.
Well, that's why we love having you on. And I'm really happy we got to scratch the surface of this dark side of collecting, because it's something that I think a lot of us are interested in. But as we've discussed a number of times before, and I love the advice that you've just given now, like, buy the things you love, collect the things you love. That's what this show is all about. And we're thrilled to have Rael Demby back on. Rael, we'll talk to you soon. And people, buy gold. I mean, I'm not giving you financial advice here, but if we'd listened to Rael a couple of months ago, we'd all be a lot happier than the people who bought
buying
Bitcoin.
gold.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you guys for your time, eh?
Always.
Keep on
Lovely
collecting.
to have you on. Lovely to see you. Thanks so much, Rael. All right. Cheers, everybody. It's already 8 o'clock. We've rushed through this morning like a dose of salts. Leigh-Ann's going to go and dig around in her old bottles of coins to see if she can find
trinkets.
See if she can find a Sammy Marks Tiki. That's the first time I've ever heard of those. How cool is that?
Very cool. Yeah. And also, I mean, these things have to exist, especially the illegal ones for villains. You can't be a villain and not own an illegal piece of art. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. It's been a busy morning, and we've only just started the week. So we will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early. Have a very good day. Cheers, everybody.